Mrs. Gillespie here again for our next lesson on grammar. And I want to warn you that this lesson has a lot of big words in it. Okay, so I'm going to go over a lot of new vocabulary with you. Not a lot, but a little bit. But these are really important concepts for you to understand when you're writing. And you need to be using these in your writing. Okay? Now, the other thing I want to say before I get started is that there is going to be a quiz over what I'm talking about, not this week, but next week. So it's really important that you listen to this video. If you need to watch it again, watch it as many times as you need to. Okay, so I'm going to go over this nice and slow. I'm going to talk a little bit slower than I normally do so that you get everything that I'm going over. Okay, so what we're working on today is talking about writing complex sentences. We talked about a few weeks ago simple sentences, and I even left the anchor chart up here. I will put a picture of this anchor chart and the other ones that I'm getting ready to go over, okay? But if you remember, a simple sentence tells a complete thought. It has to have a noun and a verb, but it tells a complete thought. Okay, that's really important for you to remember and to understand, okay? So, today we're talking about complex sentences. There are some terms that I want to go over with you before I go into the nitty-gritty. The first one is a clause. It's spelled just like Santa Claus, but it's just the word clause, and it actually does have a meaning in grammar, okay? So a clause is part of a sentence that contains a verb and a noun. It's just part of the sentence. And there are two types of clauses. So the first word that I just went over with you guys was clause. There are two types of those of things called clauses, right? It's not Mr. and Mrs. Claus. It's independent and dependent. So if something is independent, it is able to be by itself. If you are independent, you're able to do something by yourself. Like you can tie your shoes by yourself. You are independent, right? But you can't live by yourself. So you're not independent when it comes to living, right? You're dependent. It means you depend on someone or something else to help you. Right now you are dependents of your parent or whoever takes care of you. Okay? So, sorry, I gotta get rid of that. It's distracting me. So the two types are independent, which means they can be by themselves, or dependent, they cannot be by themselves. So an independent clause is a simple sentence that tells a complete thought, has a subject and a verb. So if it's an independent clause, it can be by itself. You can write it in a sentence by itself and it sounds perfectly fine and it looks perfectly fine. An independent clause is basically the same thing as a simple sentence. Those are, and you'll see some examples, those are the same. Now, when you look, I'm going to put pictures of these anchor charts. I color coded them for you. So anytime you see something that's blue on these two anchor charts, it is the independent clause, okay? The second type is a dependent clause. A dependent clause still has a noun and a verb, but it can't be written by itself. It has to be written, you have to add more to it for it to make sense. They don't make sense by themselves. They sound weird if you write them as a sentence, okay? So it has a subject and a verb, but does not tell a complete thought. In order to write a complex sentence, you have to write an independent clause and a dependent clause. Those two things go together to make a complex sentence. Remember we talked about a compound sentence was two sentences put together with a conjunction in the middle? Well, now we're going to talk about complex sentences. And if you remember, I told you, you got to understand compound sentences before we can go on to complex. Now the difference is complex sentences, one of them cannot be by themselves, right? They have to both go together in order to make sense. One of them can be by themselves, the other one cannot. And I'll show you. So on here, if you see blue, that's the independent clause in the sentence. If you see orange, it might look red on the screen, orange, reddish. then it's the dependent clause. It cannot be by itself. It has to have, you have to write more to go with it. So let's look at some examples. I tried to give you a lot of examples this week because I was really concerned that this is going to be confusing. We are going to work on this today, and we're going to work on it next week again before we take the quiz. Okay? So don't stress out if you're like, I have no idea what she's talking about. I'm also putting on a vocabulary video. Again, it has all those big words that I'm talking about right now, but watch it and watch it again if you're still not sure. Okay? And also, before I go on, just remember that I have office hours at 9 o'clock in the morning if you need to come see me. I won't have them on Thursday or Friday this week, but I will have them next week again on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Okay? And if you need more, if you can't make it to the 9 o'clock, just send me a message. I would be happy to get on and meet you at some other time. Okay, so let's look at some examples. He went swimming even though the water was cold. Now look at this. The blue is the independent clause. It can be by itself. He went swimming. That is a simple sentence. He went swimming. Okay? To make it complex, I have to add the dependent clause. Even though the water was cold. He went swimming even though the water was cold. So I can find a simple sentence in there, but since there's more added, that's a complex sentence. It is complex. Okay? Let's look over here. The tourists, I'm going to turn the camera just a little bit so you guys can see. Sorry. Okay, the tourists looked for seals even though it was getting dark. So the tourists looked for seals. Is that a sentence by itself? Yes, yes it is. But then I added, even though it was getting dark. This is the dependent clause. Okay, it still has a subject and a verb. It was getting dark, but I have to add it. Could I say, even though it was getting dark by itself? No, that sounds weird. Okay, so I could not do that. After they waited a few minutes, they saw the seals. After they waited a few minutes, okay, like if you say that by itself, you like, as a reader, you're probably thinking like, wait, what happened after they waited a few minutes? I don't know, right? Because it needs more. They saw the seals. Now, could you write, they saw the seals by themselves? Yes, yes, you could. Okay, before the tourists left for the day. Before the tourists left for the day. Could I do that by itself? No. Okay, I need to add more. Before the tourists left for the day, what happened before they left for the day? I don't know, because no one added anything else. Okay, I need more. Even though the water was choppy, the seals swam gracefully. Even though the water was choppy, oh good, we added the rest of the sentence. The seals swam gracefully. The seals swam gracefully is a sentence by itself. But to make it more interesting and to make it a complex sentence, we have to add a little bit. While we were on vacation, we saw a baby seal. While we were on vacation. So it tells me what, so we saw a baby seal. When did you see a baby seal? We saw it while we were on vacation. It gives me more information, or gives my reader, who I'm writing to, more information about when or where I saw the baby seal. Even though the water was cold. Even though the water was cold, what? I need more, right? So I would need to add more to the beginning or the end. Now the other thing I want to show you, today you won't have to write any complex sentences, but next week I am going to have you write complex sentences on your own, okay? But today, what I want you to notice is that when the independent clause goes first, no commas, okay? If the independent clause is first in the sentence, no commas. However, if the dependent clause goes first, I have to add a comma. So the dependent clause, comma, independent clause. If it's independent clause first, no comma. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit tricky and confusing as we go on to write complex sentences. But that's why I want to post these pictures up there too, so you can go back and just look at the pictures and get some help that way. As I said, if you have questions on this, you don't understand what I'm talking about, Miss Gillespie's not making any sense today. Please come see me during my office hours. I'd be happy to help you. I can go through more examples with you. I can clarify any confusion you have over these new vocabulary words. So again, we're talking about clauses, not Santa. Clauses that are in when we write, independent clauses, dependent clauses, and we use those to make complex sentences. Okay? Take it one step at a time. Today's assignment is you just have to identify whether it's a complex sentence. And if it's a complex sentence, you just write complex on the assignment. If it's not a complex sentence, you just write dependent clause, which is a big word, but it's in the directions. If you need help, just go back and look at the directions on the paper. Okay? I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.